All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Subquery's custom interview series. My name is James Bailey, but today I'm joined by David Finkelstein from Head of Growth at Oak Network. David, thank you very much for coming along today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. Really excited to talk to you and talk about Subquery, talk about Oak.
Why don't we start by introducing yourself? What's your background? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm David. I'm the head of growth at Oak Network. That means a little bit of everything, I suppose, but really focused primarily on community and partnerships right now, especially with Dot being the way that it is. My background mostly in traditional finance, a lot of sales, biz dev type things, and then around 2018 got really fed up with it, and after having studied a year of crypto back since 2017. Just had to wipe my hands of that old experience. So bounced around a couple startups, tried some things on my own, but when it was time to really kind of settle down and start looking for where I wanted to be long term, crypto always made a lot of sense. And my friends were yelling at me. They're like, "Dude, it's always been crypto. Why are you trying to do anything else?" So hopped into the space, joined the team in December, and it's been a whirlwind, but it's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, you learn a lot very quickly in crypto, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, you do.
But everyone is, right? Everyone's on the same thing. Everyone's pushing as hard as possible, and things aren't set. There's no standard way to do things yet.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's really fun because especially, at Oak Network, we're doing something brand new as well. And I'm sure we'll get into exactly, how we constructed the automation and all those fun things. But there is that sense of vibrancy, right, in the space. And I can't speak for all the communities across the entire world, but I can speak for, Polkadot and Kusama very deeply at this point. And the amount of energy and kind of vibrancy that's in the space is, it's really, I haven't seen it anywhere else.
Yeah, well, that's a great segue. So why don't we talk about Oak Network? Tell us about what's the elevator pitch, or please explain.
Yeah. So the way we describe Oak Network is a trustless and secure automation hub for Web3. That's kind of like the tagline, right? But what does that actually mean? It means that there's a lot of functionality and features that require automation, whether you kind of think about it like a Zapier framework or if this then that framework. We're used to things happening automatically, whether that be in Web2 or in real life or whatever it may be. And right now, as far as I know, there isn't a trustless and secure way to do that. So there's definitely other solutions out there, and I don't like to knock on them too much. Everyone has their place, but some of the kind of attack vectors that we close up are signing over your keys, bot networks, and locking up your coins for extended period of time so that someone else can execute transactions on your behalf. None of that is necessary with Oak. With Oak, we built a new virtual machine basically on Substrate, which is why we're on Dot. And it has what is effectively we call an event registry, so that we have both triggers and scheduled transactions. And in the beginning, what we'll be starting with is the time trigger and the recurring functionality. So if you think about payroll for DAOs, if you think about dollar cost average strategies, portfolio rebalancing, anything that has to happen at a specific point in time, that will be enabled kind of as the first step. After that, we'll be talking about price triggers. So if you think about DeFi, there's a lot of iceberg orders, stop loss limit, advanced order books, things of that nature. That'll all be functionality that'll be, again, fully secure, fully trustless. You'll have that functionality that you're used to, on your Coinbase Pro. You'll have it on your DEX of preferred choice that's partnered with Oak. Then,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, there's a huge potential. I don't think people realize how much automation and small automation processes, how much time they save when you're kind of running a business, right? Or trying to scale a business. So there's a huge potential out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about businesses and all, and whether it be payroll and, if you work with SAP or any of those things, some people have, if you haven't, consider yourself lucky. But they're huge markets, they're huge businesses. They're not just small things. And especially for people who are, want to remain anonymous or for whatever other reason, trustless is the way that they need to go. Or even DAOs, right, who really don't have access to traditional banking systems by any stretch of the imagination. I know some have found workarounds, but I've talked to quite a few who are like, payroll is just, it's mind-bogglingly difficult, right? Because you have this crazy multi-sig stuff. You have everyone be paid out in different types of coins, whatever it may be. Having the automation hub is really going to ease a lot of those pain points, we hope, in the very near future.
So what are some examples, right? Like you mentioned here, like issuing payroll from DAOs, but what other examples that you might use Oak for, or are you excited to see coming forward in the future?
So yeah, so for the DeFi, if you think about the price triggers, I think there's going to be some very cool things we can do there with that, because you'll have the functionality that people are used to, right, on a traditional centralized exchange, where you are doing a limit order or a stop order such that, Bitcoin hits 10,000, sell all my Bitcoin. Don't wish that upon anyone, but just in case, right? It's nice to have those features available. But then there's also more kind of pie in the sky type things that we can approach with all the data being on chain, right? We can start tracking moving averages per a specific DEX. We can start copy trading. We can even do kind of very weird esoteric things where you are portfolio rebalancing based on the movements of other coins, right? If you want to trade Ether based on the Bitcoin price, or you want to trade Polkadot based on Kusama because you feel they're correlated and one lags, we can do all those things. As long as the data is on chain, we're good to go and create those customized strategies. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what other projects come up with, and what, probably most importantly for everyone watching, what users are looking for.
Yeah, I imagine there's going to be quite a lot of opportunity, especially with the whale strategy. There's a lot of people monitoring whales and how they trade, and when a big account makes a movement. So automating the trading and to kind of copycat trading, I think will be a big opportunity for people.
Yeah, it's interesting because when it's weird because we have this transparency in blockchain, right, where you can watch the whales who choose to remain anon, and you can kind of like, copy on that side. But it also opens up this weird world of like influencer trading as well, right? And I'm a little bit worried, if I'm honest, about some of the implications there. We're going to work our best to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of the system. But if someone wanted to, for instance, if they have some sort of subscription service and they're handing out charts, and they wanted to make it known that what their wallet address was, it creates advertising opportunities and other things for them, which if they are being truthful about their performance, whatever it may be, you can lend credence to the people who actually outperform, and have more people follow them, and they can create business for themselves that would be very difficult to otherwise.
Yeah, democratization of all these trading strategies. You've given a lot of DeFi examples, but I think what would be interesting is especially in Polkadot. In Polkadot, we're seeing a lot of new applications coming through that aren't DeFi. New chains that are coming through that are doing completely different things around privacy, around identity management, around there's one, for example, that's doing IP management. I imagine there's a lot of weird examples and use cases that may come through with Oak, being able to automate some things around those parachains and chains. So how do you deal with that cross-chain aspect of automation with Oak? Because that's the big thing about the Polkadot ecosystem approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of things we can do. The good news is our architecture is built so, like I was saying earlier, a smart contract state change anywhere can affect smart contract state change anywhere, as long as we've got those XCMP channels opened up, right? So Oak is really trying to lean on the XCMP lever, so to speak, and push it forward and fast as hard as we can, because I'd like to be very transparent. We're an infrastructure play. Without it, we don't have much use case. So I'm sure we could build the DEX if we really wanted to, but we don't think it's our core competency. So we're trying to avoid those things and really bring automation out to the other projects. So other interesting examples that I've thought about, I'm quite a big gamer. I used to be a very big gamer. Now I'm maybe a medium gamer. But dropping of loot and randomizing things of that nature. If you wanted to have boss spawns, if you wanted to automatically, have trees grow at a certain time during the day, these are all things that I've seen in games, and it's very easy to do these things through AWS, right? But the more that decentralization and the more that trustlessness become important, not only to like kind of our small currency ecosystem, right? And it is relatively small, right? If we all think this is going to kind of eat the world, once your identity, like you said, becomes really, really important, the more trustless it is, the more you're going to be willing to engage with those platforms, right? So I think some other things that we've been thinking about are, influencer style like staking, where you can kind of follow like one person or another. We've even talked about auto selling and transferring to like an account that you can't touch until April for tax purposes, because there's quite a few people who, are tempted to kind of just pull a couple coins here and there and then not realize exactly what's going to go on in April. So, I think that's a realistic product as well. And if someone wants to build that, you could probably build that directly on Oak. I don't think we're going to have a ton of, dApps. It's just not really our forte. But for something simple like that, if you just wanted to automate something on your own account, you'd be able to do that just, within our own ecosystem.
But that's the important play, right? You're not building the apps, you're building the infrastructure behind it to make those apps easy and make the interoperability between those apps a lot easier. So in a way, you're quite similar to what we do at Subquery, right? We're both an infrastructure play, or both of our kind of goals really is to make the lives of other application developers and other people in the ecosystem easier by easing the way that we share data around. For us, it's taking data from the chain and providing it in a better format. For you, it's being able to, if this, then that, move things around and have events trigger other actions somewhere else. So how are you using Subquery?
Yeah, Subquery has been great for us. We've been using it a couple different ways, and kind of we plan to use it slightly different in the future. But for the crowd loan purposes, there was quite a bit of work just to make sure that all the transactions were going off properly. We were using Subquery to monitor that very heavily, and also provide transparency. We were talking a lot about that, right? One of Oak's deep values is definitely transparency, and that way we had the ability to share information with the people in the crowd loan, let them know how it's going. We were monitoring all that with Subquery. In the future, and well, let me come back. In the current time phase where like I said, we're monitoring that infrastructure for our parachain launch that's happening right now. There are some monitoring systems that Subquery has been really, really brilliant for. The health of the network is so critically important for automation, as I was saying earlier. And not everyone knows this, but parachains have, a limited amount of compute time. We really need to make sure we cram as much in there as we possibly can to make sure that everyone's automation is going off as quickly and as smoothly as possible. Or maybe I shouldn't say quickly, but as accurately as possible, right? So
you don't want to miss payroll, right?
You don't want to miss payroll. You definitely don't want to miss your NFT snipe, whatever it may be, right? Whatever you're watching, if you're automating it, if you're paying fees for it, you want to make sure it happens. And we respect that here very much. So monitoring the status and the health of the network with Subquery has been absolutely fantastic. In the future, we are going to be using it primarily for product research more than anything else. We're going to be using it to keep track of what type of automations people are scheduling, if there's been any failures, or do we have power users yet? How decentralized are we? All those are questions that we're super interested in at Oak, and Subquery is the tool that lets us most easily get eyes on it in a way that makes sense.
No, that's great. Yeah, and that is one thing that we don't often go into is how you can use Subquery to really understand how the network's operating and how things are working. So that's quite beneficial. One thing I want to ask you about is what your thoughts on around this big no-code or low-code hype that you find in the Web 2 automation world. Are you guys doing a bit about that, or looking at how you can kind of bring that into play, or are you kind of just starting with the bare bones developer coding out the automation pipelines first and then looking at those tools later?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's kind of a fork in the road for us, so to speak, and not that we've not taken both paths, but mentally, it's kind of a fork in the road for me, I should say. On the one hand, we are a very heavy on the back end type team. We believe in the infrastructure, we believe in cross chain, multi chain, and we believe in the value of kind of that backbone of services that we think Web3 needs to really pull in new users, right? Because it's one thing to be able to access a good yield. It's another thing to actually understand what gas fees are, right? There's a lot of people we still need to educate and make it easy to have them come into the fold. So that's one half of it. But as far as the no code aspect, we do really believe in an extremely user-friendly experience. So we're doing a couple things on that front to make it as easy as possible. The first one, like I said, is this kind of open architecture where people can automate whatever they want. We are, I'm non-descriptive or prescriptive in terms of what people need to build on the Oak network. If it makes sense for you and your project, that's why it's the blockchain, right? That's the fun part, right? And then beyond that, I guess I could drop this a little bit early. We'll see. There's some things we're talking about in terms of a DApp contest, just to kind of show off the functionality. We've got more details on that coming, so don't ping me about it too much, but that's the types of things we're trying to incentivize so that people can better understand exactly what they can do, right? Just because we don't see Oak as this big front-facing Facebook type enterprise, right, where you come in and interact with oak.com every day, or oak.tech, doesn't mean that we don't believe in a user-friendly experience. So we're building and working with our partners kind of every day to make sure that the automation is truly useful and usable, because just having it sit behind a wall of code unfortunately doesn't really serve our purposes or our vision.
Yeah, that's a good, interesting challenge is how to really explain to everyone like the capabilities and the possibilities. We've had that same problem at Subquery. It's like you have to build some pretty cool examples, and for people to realize that, oh wow, you can actually do it to do this as well. Because often the core team know best about the possibilities and the limitations of the product. So you've just finished your crowd loan. You've just got your Parachain slot. You're about to launch soon. What's the current status for Oak Network?
Yeah, so we're going strong. The Turing network is the name of the Canary network on Kusama. That is live and producing blocks. So if you contributed, thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys. The rewards should be rolling out very shortly. We've got some phases on our website, which I said oak.tech earlier, if you want to check more of that out. But we are, the the scheduled transaction functionality is ready. Recurring should be done before functionality goes live. So a lot of those things that you're hearing me talk about are not just somewhere off in the distant future. I really hope to be offering dollar cost averaging, payroll, and portfolio rebalancing in the when I say very near term, I'm talking about like a month or two at tops. So I never promised timelines. So if my dev team's watching, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say things like that.
Never promise timelines. Never promise timelines. Only promise orders of things to happen.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think it'll happen very quickly. These are my personal expectations, and I think one thing that I've been really proud about with Oak is just our ability to deliver, like not only on time, but we managed to do everything early. Even the crowd loan went off without a hitch. So yeah, that's kind of the current status of where we're at.
That's excellent. And so the last question I always finish with is, so David, what would your bit of advice be to someone, maybe from the same background that you came from, that's thinking about entering blockchain or thinking about entering, the .sam ecosystem? What's your advice for them, or anything you want to say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really incredible time, and particularly for .sama, where this cross-chain architecture has really kind of stoked the flames of a lot of people who believe in collaboration. So if that Web3 interests you and you like collaborating with interesting, smart people, I can't think of a better place to do it better than .sama universe. As far as advice, I really have two main ones that I kind of give people. It's happening, right? People are starting to ask me more and more since I joined, like, how do I get in? How do I get in? I think the first one is just to like really get involved. And it doesn't have to be anything big. I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to like mint my own NFT or create a dApp. And it doesn't have to be anything so serious. If you start hopping in Discords, meeting people that you think are interesting and just helping out however you can, I think everyone that I've talked to at least has been very surprised at as big as Web3 and .sama has grown over the past couple of years, there's still so many more skill sets that are needed. I know people looking for event managers. I know I'm working on partnerships. I'm working on marketing. These roles that people have deep skill sets in from kind of what I refer to my own like past life, right? They're suddenly becoming highly relevant because everyone's trying to grow at a rapid pace, and there's so many incredible ideas that Web3 is new, but a lot of the same skill sets are probably more transferable than you'd think. I'd recommend getting involved and just talking to people and figuring out where you fit best, because every culture is different. But if you try, I'm confident there's a spot for you somewhere.
I'm sure you have the same problems that we have at Subquery, where it's not just developers that we need; it's business development, it's marketing, it's support, it's sales, it's even organizing the accounting, for example. And all these teams are generally like founded by developers, but they kind of forget about all the rest of the other business stuff that is so critical as well.
I think you could kind of get away with it in 2017. It was a lot smaller. Yeah. It was kind of flying. Everyone's flying by the seat of their pants. But if you want to compete against the strongest teams in the business, if you're creating a DEX and you want eyes from Coinbase to look at you, you better look slick. You better have some nice icons. You better have people that can talk to the outside world. You can't just drop tech and hope people find it anymore. It's not on all on Bitcoin talk forums anymore. It's happening in other places. You got to know how to reach people for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, David, thank you very much for making the time to talk to us. Thank you very much for coming on and showing off and talk about Oak Network. Everyone, just make sure you check out oak.tech. That's the website, and keep an eye out for what's coming through with this new app challenges and app development program and whatever else is coming forward. But I'm sure there's a lot going to be happening soon.
Yeah, we got quite a few things planned, but really appreciate the time, James. Always fun talking to you, and yeah, excited to keep working with you guys as well.
Thanks, David. Cheers.
Bye now.